for me, I've had enough experiences in my life where I've been near death or whatnot. And so one thing that I often have reflected back on is I haven't come across something other than time that you can't get more of in life.
Right.
I can make more money. I could find a new friend, a new girlfriend, a new job, a new car, a new hat, But the only thing I've come across that you can't make more of is time.
You guys have heard like this.
Look at that. Oh, yo.
That's it. You understand? What's up, guys? This episode is brought to you by Crown Movement, who is in support of mental health and physical wellness.
Yes, sir.
If you would like to support, it's as easy as clicking that link right down below in that description and going and checking out our beanies, shirts, and a wide variety of colors. These hoodies will be in that store.
Look at us.
In person and online.
Absolutely.
On the 20th of November, 2022.
Stay tuned and enjoy the episode. All right. Exciting episode.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You don't have to do this now. Oh,
Right
he's got
here.
it, though.
He has it, bro.
He's got it, though. He's
quick
that.
learner.
He's like
Yeah,
that.
I've just never heard it called this before.
A dap up. What is it called for you? Just like a handshake?
Yeah, handshake, exactly.
Handshake.
Okay,
All right.
that's
Handshake, dap up,
That's
same
fair.
difference.
Whatever you call it, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
fair
cool.
enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Unfiltered. We're here with the boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Red Deer's very own, Ian MacNairn.
That's right.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Chilling, excited. A lot of stuff coming.
Yeah, really excited to be here.
Yeah,
It's
me as well.
an amazing day. It's been pretty cold outside for everybody in Alberta. It's been freezing.
Yeah, all of a
Weather's
sudden within
been
the last
dropping.
week, just
Yeah.
like cold, lots
Non-stop
of snow.
Yeah.
It's been a little hectic. Have you been to Calgary to and from a couple times yet, or
Not this week.
not this week?
No, but I did read that either Monday or yesterday, Tuesday, in a number of places in Alberta, record-breaking cold.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Already?
Wow.
Coldest
Again?
coldest recorded for the day in history.
Wow.
Holy, that's
Wow.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out there and like run still, you know? Like, have you been out there?
I've been running every day, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
outside?
these two runners,
no,
man.
not outside. No, I've just been on the treadmill, which is
yeah.
harsh, but it's been super cold.
Yeah, honestly, it's not even
Yeah.
worth it. Like, we've been going out for like our warm-ups, which are like 15 minutes.
Right.
But that's kind of where I draw the line,
Yeah.
especially right now.
Even like the other night, I was at my friend's house. She lives right across the block, so I just ran to get something from my car, and my lungs were like freezing. I was like, so I'm not a runner. I don't know how y'all do it.
Yeah, well, it's like midwinter cold already, and it's
Yeah.
just the start of November.
I know. No, this is something I'd expect for December, but that's
or
Alberta.
January, February.
February.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is like January,
Very
February
true.
weather.
Yeah.
Very true.
And it was 10 above the week before.
Right?
Yeah.
I saw somewhere on my phone that it was supposed to heat up a little bit, not extremely, but like a little bit more than it is now, because right now it's unbearable. I hate the cold, but
Yeah, it looks like it's supposed to be close to 0 this weekend.
that's the Canada life.
That's true.
Sounds nice
That's
to
the
me.
Canada life. So obviously, right, without need for introduction, most of you might know who he is, but if you don't, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, what do you want to know?
Tell us your main gigs.
Okay.
Your Huffington's post-dubbed one of the world's top ultra-marathon runners.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is clickbait.
Clickbait.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not truthful. But,
Not truthful?
No. I mean, it was like a great article done by a woman I really respect, a journalist, Christina.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frango. She's in Calgary, and she's done a couple of pieces on me in the past.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think she was the writer of the title of this article.
Okay,
I
fair
think it was
enough.
like kind of clickbait to
Kind of clickbait.
a bit. Yeah.
Worked on me.
Yeah,
on
really
me.
like hyped up the reality of the situation. But yeah, my name's Ian. I was born and raised in Red Deer.
Born and raised.
That's right. And I left after high school, and I moved back here in June. It's now November. I've been here for a few months, and right now I'm working as a physician, a doctor here in Red Deer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. What high school did you go to?
I went to Hunting Hills High School.
Hunting Hills High School.
Wow.
That's right.
We got the big three.
Yeah,
That's
you are
right.
our arch nemesis.
That's
This
Notre
guy's
Dame.
Dame. I'm Lindsay.
Yeah, you're at comp. That's
For
right.
the comp, yeah, that's what people called it. The comp.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't call it the comp
They just
anymore.
call it Lindsay or
That's
Thurber.
right, Thurber. Yeah,
One of the
exactly.
two.
Yeah.
Not too important. That's amazing though. In that article, they really Christina goes in depth, right? She talks a lot about your life and. Initially, like, just doing some research about you, because obviously I gotta, can't come into the podcast knowing nothing.
Clueless.
Just talking about your struggles throughout your life. Just talking about the race in the mountains. Where was that?
I think the race that you're referring to is in it's called a principality. It's not a country, but it's a standalone kind of state that's known as Andorra. It's in the Pyrenees Mountains.
Wow.
In between
that's so cool.
Spain and France.
That's really cool. Tell us about that experience. How was that going out there?
Sure, yeah. So I've been there twice. I ran that race in 2016 and 2015, I believe, back-to-back years.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't finish it the first year, and so that's why I went back to try and finish it again. And so what she talks about in the article is when I ran it the second time in the summer of 2016. And it's a mountainous run. It's a trail run, but it's all in the mountains. It's 70 kilometers in length, and it's called the ELS 2900. And that name basically means the 2900. And so there are a number of mountains over 2,900 meters in Andorra, and the race summits all of the mountains that are over 2,900 meters. And it's kind of unmarked course. And you, for the most part, can choose your own line. And the way the race is no longer going on, but it was not an invitation-only event, but it was one that required folks to submit kind of their resume and be selected for participation.
Right.
Okay.
Because there was only about 30 participants selected from around the world to participate
So
in those first couple of years.
What happened that first year that you raced it?
So I was doing, went out pretty well. It's a race. It starts at midnight because there's some technical climbing, kind of rock climbing, in near the end of the race. And so the idea is that they want folks to be able to get to that point in the daylight. So you start at midnight so that you can get there before night the following day.
And it's a 24-hour thing, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, that's right. It's a 24-hour allotted to finish it. But you had to get to that checkpoint by 5 p.m.
And what if you didn't? You're just done?
No, there's a separate route that you could take, but no one wants to do that.
Right, obviously.
Yeah.
Big pride hitter.
Yeah, well, that, and I mean, it's just like not within the true kind of nature and the spirit.
Yeah, it's kind of like at that point.
Race.
It's kind of like at that point you didn't really do it.
Well, I mean, you did it, but it's
not the same.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Like
what do I know anyway?
It's not like the same gratification. Like in the back of your mind, you'll be like, yeah, I finished, but did I really, truly do like the full thing?
Yeah, sure. There's that, but I think it's like more of a not about self gratification or kind of ego aspect of it, but being aligned with the spirit of the event was taking the most technical line across the sky to run summit all these peaks, and so that's the truest line.
Okay.
But it's as a safety mechanism. If you didn't get there before 5 p.m., you could carry on, but you'd take a lower version, which is all well and good.
No diss to any of those people at all. They were.
Well, if you finish the race, there's not many in the world who are doing this.
Exactly. You're already top of the top out there, especially on the mountains.
It's pretty obscure. But yeah, the first year I did it, I was coming it had snowed just a day or two before. They were running it in either late October or early November, and so it was quite icy and snowy up high.
Oh boy, yeah.
And there are no requirements in terms of what you have to bring in terms of gear, whereas a lot of races have a checklist of items you have to bring, whether it's a certain amount of food, water, jacket, gloves, whatever. Whereas this race said, well, you're brought into the race under your resume, so we're vetting you. There's an assumption that you know what to do in the mountains. Yeah. And so we'll leave it up to you. You don't want to bring a jacket, that's your call.
Were there a lot of people like just wearing like shorts and just
Oh yeah. Most everyone wore shorts or tights. Yeah.
nothing super bulky, I'm guessing.
No, yeah, certainly not.
You guys can speak more towards the racing aspect of it, because again, I'm
you
sort of
definitely
clueless.
do not want that much stuff.
Right.
No, yeah, exactly. But on the morning, well, late night because it started at midnight. But at the start of the race, I decided to leave my crampons out of my backpack. And crampons are a tool that you attach to the bottom of your shoes or boots so that you can
okay. I think
walk
my mom
on
has
ice.
Those.
Maybe
Yeah,
they're used in ice climbing and mountaineering. And I decided not to take them because they were a bit heavy. And that's like, of course, that's what I ended up needing. Yeah, because I coming off of the third or the fourth peak, the 2,900 meter peaks. I slipped on some ice and went sliding down the mountain and through the scree, like the kind of boulder field, which is fine. Wow. Whatever. Not too. I was unscathed,
right?
Except for the fact that it had tore out my insulin infusion site.
Oh no!
And at the time, I was using an insulin pump to administer my insulin because I have type 1 diabetes.
Yes.
And so it was torn off. So I no longer had that with me, and I carried on for a while. But at a certain point, I decided to stop the race.
And this was the first time.
That was the first year. Yeah.
You know, how far in you were when you decided to?
Yeah. So there are 3 checkpoints, and I pulled the plug at the second. So I was about 40 to 45 kilometers in.
So like the full marathon almost, just about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'd gone most of the way, but really only half the way.
How far were you without your pump?
I spent, in terms of time, almost half a day.
Wow.
Yeah, something like 8 to 12 hours.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It got like a little. I was like, that's why I decided to quit, because it was
that's a safety issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like you're risking your own life.
That's a pretty big one, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. It was just like a shitty, unfortunate accident. That it got pulled out. Like I got a bit scratched up, which is fine, but I didn't get injured. But it's like, oh well, there's nothing I can do without that. Kind of just halts you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the first year, and I didn't finish. And I decided it was such a sick event. It's so beautiful. The race directors are awesome guys that I'm now friends with. I was like, I got to go back. I want to
round two finish it.
Exactly. So I was selected again to go back in 2016.
Would you say, because you say they do some research on the people that are going, right, to make sure everything's up to par kind of thing?
Well, you have to submit an application, like a registration, as you do for any kind of race,
right.
Like long mountain race or ultramarathon. But in particular, this one, they wanted you to provide a resume so that they could make a more informed kind of acceptance list. Because they only took 30 people, they wanted to make sure that they could kind of vouch for people's experience and or skill.
How many people were actually applying?
I have no idea.
No,
I'm not sure.
That's interesting.
I mean, it could have been only 30, but my guess is a little bit more, but probably not hundreds of people.
Yeah,
it's like a fairly niche sport.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, trail running already. I mean, running. Long distance running has grown massively in the last few decades.
Oh yeah.
Whereby now there's millions of people practicing this around the world. But trail running, much less so. And then extremely long distance trail running, even less so. And then something that incorporates mountaineering. Very few people are doing this in the world.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
In an absolute sense.
So in one sense, you are one of the top.
I guess just due to obscurity.
just due to obscurity. At least you are, though.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Take that with pride, I guess.
Well, it's not for me. It's not about pride. It's just like pursuing what I resonate with the most, and that brings me the most. I don't know, fulfillment. I mean, fulfillment in a sense, but like traveling the path that feels right for me now.
Yeah. And I love that. When we were having we had a discussion with Ian a day or two ago. Monday we were just chatting, getting to know each other, and then I just love your outlook on so many things, right? It's something that a lot of people don't don't like possess right off the get-go. Especially like, teenagers are the best example because people are growing up and they're learning, right?
Sure.
You have either the people that don't try at all, the people that try too hard, and you have the people in the middle that are kind of just like, this is what it is, and it's kind of different than being humble. I think you're just like, that's just you.
I think you've just accepted who you are, like so authentically that
not to shove compliments everywhere, but
unfazed.
Yeah, maybe.
I think you're happy.
I'm working on being happy. Yeah. This is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, like no matter what anyone would say, you would just be like, yeah.
How'd that second race go?
Well, the second race was more successful in the fact that I finished it.
Clearly.
I also went
Right
into
off the
it.
get-go.
I was quite a bit fitter.
Right.
And
you were more
I was stronger, more prepared,
Yeah.
Physically and mentally and emotionally for it. And I had like seen the course, at least the first almost 2/3 of it.
Was
So
it very similar the second time around?
It was the same.
exact same?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow.
So I was familiar with some of it and knew part of what was required to be strong enough to do it.
Exactly.
And I was also no longer using an insulin pump, so that factor was not going to be an issue. And I was feeling pretty strong that summer. I had prepared a lot for some hard events. And I went out kind of like at the front of the race, and I was in second position for the first maybe 30 kilometers or so of the 70. And so we summited the first of their 7 2,900 meter peaks.
Right.
So we summited that, and I was in second position, and it's the middle of the night, like before 2 a.m. And it was quite dewy up high, so it was in long grasses and quite wet and slick underfoot, and I'm just like charging downhill in the dark, with a headlamp, and I slipped, and as you do when you're running in the night, my feet went out from underneath me, and I fell on my butt.
Oh. Did you slide?
No, I didn't.
Just
but
planted.
I put my hands, out underneath me,
Yeah.
and I broke my thumb.
Right.
And
right, that must have sucked.
Yeah, and I was wearing gloves because it's quite chilly overnight, and a jacket. And I was in a lot of pain, but I just kept like bombing downhill, and I kind of slowed down as the race went on, whereby after the first aid station around 30 kilometers or so, I was passed in third position and just slowed over the day. I was it was quite painful. But I decided not to take my gloves off because I knew the thumb was pretty fucked up. Yeah. And I was just like, I'm just going to like let it be. It wouldn't have bugged me, I don't think, to see what it was looking like, but it might have made me question whether I want to keep going. When I decided like, no, I'm fit enough, strong enough, as long as I have no troubles with diabetes and whatnot, I can finish. So like this hurts, but whether I stop or I continue, it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt, yeah. It's one of those things. Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Powering through it.
Yeah, and there's nothing to be done about it today, whether I stop or not. So like I'm just going to carry on.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful day. It's one of two of my favorite courses that I've ran in the mountains. It's so amazing. And so I finished late that evening. And then that's when I took off my gloves, and
oh god,
the thumb was like pretty gnarly looking.
Oh, what was it?
Like the whole palm, the palmar side of my hand was all like blackened, and I'm like pretty white skinned. It was not looking happy. It was a bit swollen, and then I had to have it surgically rebuilt.
Surgically rebuilt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad you still got it.
Now it's like,
honestly,
this is normal. This is my right thumb. Yeah. In terms of flexion, the left one. Yeah. The left one doesn't bend.
Gotcha.
All the way.
Yeah. I told you about that boxer's fracture.
That's right.
For those of you who know me, you know what happened. I punched a locker. Same thing. Silly. Like I can this is normal, right? Yeah. Like you see that.
Right.
But then this one is like, can't even do that without twitching or pulling the other ones with it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
In that case, like, are you a fan of like ibuprofen, Advil? Like, would you use any anti-inflammatory remedies? Like, were you just
100%?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you have them with you? Like, did you take anything?
I can't recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was more just
I
a power
may
through
have.
it kind of thing.
Oh, you mean during the race?
Yes.
Oh, no, I didn't use anything during the race.
Okay.
Oh, wow,
No.
just raw pain.
Yeah, well,
That's
it is what it
part
is.
of what it is. Yeah, and in
Crazy.
like, had I not been running, I'm
Mhm.
sure I would have taken some Tylenol or
Mhm.
ibuprofen or
Yeah.
something else. But during racing, I try to avoid that stuff, not to try to like just have a more full experience of the pain, but in part because running already taxes your kidneys,
Yes.
and taking something like ibuprofen or
Extra
Advil.
load on it.
Yeah, right, exactly, which can just like add to strain that's
Unnecessary.
and it
Yeah.
might not improve the pain a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. It's just like one of those things. It's like not gonna be that big of a difference. So why would you do it anyway?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I know there's some conflicting, approaches. Like some people take acetaminophen or ibuprofen when they're racing, but lots of people try to avoid it, especially in the very long distance stuff.
Yeah.
So that they're not having any kidney injury.
Right.
I usually go on like before my big races, I'll do
Mhm.
like 4 days of like Advil or ibuprofen. If I'm having any issues, like so I'll do like
okay.
a streak,
Okay.
building up to my race, just to lower any inflammation in my body.
Okay.
So that's usually what I do personally.
Interesting. Okay.
My friend Xavier, he's one that kind of showed me that.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been doing it ever since last season.
And what have you noticed?
It works. Like my body just feels fresher. I feel better. Anything
Interesting.
that was bugging me completely gone.
Okay.
It could just be placebo. Who knows?
Well, it's
Placebo
likely
too.
not just placebo.
Yeah, but
Mixture maybe.
Yeah.
I have noticed a difference. Like I do feel better.
It's crazy how that works, and this is why I love medicine and things like that so much, because it's everybody reacts differently to different kinds of things, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
impressive.
Everybody.
I like that take.
Really quick, I just want to ask you like a question, runner to runner.
Runner.
Anytime.
Have you or do you experience runner's high?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Do you ever feel a sense like when you're running? Do you ever feel a sense of just no effort? You're just kind of like floating.
Yes.
Overhead sensation, like almost
an
like a
out of body?
meditation, out of body. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're referring to a few different things at the same time. Not on every run.
Yes.
And on the runs that it does happen, it's not throughout the whole course of the run. I find it's more like a momentous type of thing where it's happening for a moment, or I'll recognize I'm experiencing it or having the sensation, and then it comes and goes. So it's kind of transient.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely this feeling of effortlessness can happen for me.
Okay.
On runs. Yeah.
I think it's the exact same for me. Like you kind of go in and out of it, and it's
like
not on every run either.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a hard effort run or a long distance run. And it's hard for me to predict how and when, or what type of run or when it would occur. Have I had an out of body experience while running?
Yeah.
Where I've been observing myself?
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't.
You haven't?
I think not in the way that people would imagine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember last year we were out for a long run.
Right.
And I will never forget this day because it's the only time I've ever felt this.
Oh, here we go.
And I was just going along. We were right by Riverbend, and we were running by the Old Mill plant, and I think we were like 12K into like 25.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I just like felt like I was just observing myself.
That's
pretty
crazy.
Like
That's
I wasn't
nice.
actually like running or doing anything. I kind of just felt like I was just like above myself, watching myself move.
Kind of like bird's eye view.
It
Kind of
was-
like a video game.
Yeah, dude, it was so
That's
weird.
crazy.
And I felt like this like overwhelming sensation, like kind of like a high. Like, and I don't even know how to explain it because I'm not a drug user. I don't really drink alcohol ever, so I don't really
Right.
have any
Let's get
reference
medical.
point, right? So like just feeling that's like the closest I've ever been to anyone's definition of high.
Let's get medical.
That
What do you
sounds
think?
really nice.
What do you think that might be attributed to? You know,
At
like
6:45 in the morning.
like some things to be said, right? About maybe it's an oxygen thing, right? Like your brain behaves differently under the influence of, I forget what it's the actual term is it, but less oxygen and more oxygen.
I'd say probably unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
do you think it's just a dopamine thing?
It could be.
Or it's just one of those things. It's a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's
Cannot
like
be explained.
deep sea creatures.
I mean, there's many different ways I think that you could, explain it, or not necessarily just explain it, but like tell yourself a story about what happened and why you're experiencing that. And like one way that it's thought of, and this is some of the work that I did in my research now about a decade ago or so, is looking particularly at long distance runners and the experience of flow or flow state, which comes out of discipline and psychology. And when you're in a flow state, in terms of this theory of flow, you can have altered sensations and altered types of experience than you would in your normal day-to-day functioning when you're not in flow. And when you're I don't want to use the term locked in, because it's a transient type of experience, but when you're experiencing flow and all things are aligned, you can have
you just hit that.
But you can have an experience that might be difficult to explain outside of
something that's personal for you.
And I actually spoke with a sports psychologist about 8 months ago,
right,
end of my track season indoor, and that's the very first thing he said to me. He's like, "What brings you closest to this point, to this flow?" is what he called it, exactly like what you just said. And he was like, whatever brings you closest to that, just do that as often as possible. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. I run every day.
I mean, that's
super cool.
I mean, I don't know if I would strive to achieve it as often as possible or as much as possible. I mean, for me, it's more, it's something I'm not necessarily in control of. I recognize that. Yeah. And I'm able to maybe put myself in a position or a situation where I might be more susceptible.
Yes.
But I'm still, I think a part of humility around these experiences is still recognizing that I'm not in control ultimately of it happening.
That's what makes it even more special.
Like, I go out on 300 runs in a year, 320 runs a year, or whatever. I can't predict necessarily which run it will happen on, if any. But so my approach then to it is more of like being thankful and stoked if and when it happens.
Yeah.
Rather than like striving for it.
Well, I know there's a lot of times where like my runs suck, right? My legs are heavy and I just feel like garbage.
Yes,
and then
of course.
You have those good runs.
Right.
And it just makes you feel just amazing. You're just like, all those bad runs, they just disappear. You're just like, yeah, this is why I do this. Yeah. This is why I love this. And I've always been told, like, you need to have the bad days to enjoy the good days. So I apply that to everything, including running. The good days are just as important.
Certainly.
100%.
I like the power of perseverance that runners possess, particularly because putting your body under so much stress, and it's just like you said, it sucks, but you keep going.
It does.
Is really important. And Ari Unfiltered, that's what we're all about, is that kind of like self-worth, teaching yourself these things, and then being able to develop some discipline to it too. It's amazing. And that makes me think, right, like for yourself, having like health issues like diabetes. My dad was a diabetic. I'm not sure which type. I don't remember anymore, but it was one of those things that, can get in the way of a lot of things, or sometimes things just randomly happen and it just sucks. So what pushed you particularly towards sports? I mean, that's one of the things that would you say you're more known for?
Probably more known for.
Yeah. For the sports, for sure. What led you on that kind of like athletic path?
Well, I'd say largely it was my parents, and maybe in particular my father. He definitely encouraged. Well, no, that's not fair to say. It's both of my parents.
Right.
But both my parents, really encouraged and then provided opportunity for both my younger brother and I, their two children, to pursue as varied pursuits as possible: music, arts, athletics, and school, and just have this full life that was has great breadth and depth as well. And there's a promotion of being exposed to as much as we are able to, which is an extremely anomalous privilege, right? To have that opportunity to not just be able to pursue music, but also pursue arts, pursue multiple different sports. And so one piece of that was athletics. And both my brother and I, when we were very young, as many do here in Red Deer in Central Alberta and in Canada, we were playing hockey.
There you go.
And then I was playing soccer. My brother's playing basketball, and we played many different sports. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 10 years old. So I was a fairly young boy.
Wow, that's very young.
I didn't think I was a young boy, but it's like I was a young child for sure. And my parents are very concerned, and very caring and caring for me.
Did they kind of get worried on that part or pulled back from I wouldn't say the freedom, but all the opportunities?
Well, like overprotective or anything like that, or were they still pretty lenient?
I don't view my parents as ever having been overprotective of my brother or I, which is something that I'm very grateful for.
Oh, for sure.
I think my parents also recognize that myself in particular, I can't speak for my brother, but for myself, that they recognize that I'm fairly kind of independent spirit or independent kind of personality or character. And so they, for a long time, given me lots of autonomy to pursue what I wish, as long as I'm trying hard and trying to be a good person and learning. And so one thing, though, after I was diagnosed with diabetes, my dad had a friend here in Red Deer, and his daughter also had diabetes. And he was a long-distance runner. And I think through their relationship and friendship and maybe some teaching or counseling, he suggested to my dad that long-distance running might be like a helpful way to manage and care for having diabetes. In part, I think due to like the mental and emotional kind of commitment and dedication that can come from the practice of running, but then also the physical and physiological kind of steady state benefits that come from running, whereby if you have an ongoing practice of anything, whether it's like karate, running, basketball, volleyball, it doesn't really matter. If you're pursuing something consistently, you have these physical and physiological changes that provide a much more steady state rather than these highs and lows.
Right.
And the trouble with diabetes, or the challenge of the disease, is that you have these highs and lows of blood sugar. And if you have this ongoing kind of endurance type of physical pursuit in your life, it helps level the highs and level the lows.
It gives it less chance to be kind of random.
Yes. I think that's
Sorry, I just wanted to know.
No. I wouldn't use the term random, but it has less peaks and valleys, less fluctuation. Yeah, exactly. Especially the more consistently I'm running. And so my dad encouraged me to try out running when I was like 11 years old or so. So
did you fall in love with it?
I do love running. I wouldn't say that I fell in love with it right away, but I did my first. So I started kind of doing some distance running, as people would probably know it, when I was somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 years old. And I did my first 10K race on road here in Red Deer when I was, I believe, 12 years old.
Which race was it?
It was a charity type of run. And I think it was called the Red Dress Run.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and and yet everyone wore a red dress.
Really?
Yeah. This was part of the.
Oh, no way!
Charity. Yeah, so my very first run, I did it in a red dress.
Sick.
Yeah,
you have photos of that?
That is a throwback.
I don't know. Yeah, so this would have been in 2000.
Oh, fair.
2000, maybe 99.
He's like, thank God there's no evidence.
Yeah, it might have been 1999.
I would have definitely put that in a clip.
Oh, no, it very well. I mean, I don't know if there was any photos. But I remember that being the first race I did. But then I was running fairly consistently ever after that.
Yeah.
and played fairly high level competitive soccer and other sports throughout my teenage years, and these all require running.
Yeah.
Right.
When you started running, was it like were you racing or were you just running? Like you know that difference, like when you're especially when you're younger.
Like competitive rather than kind of more for yourself.
Like when did it get like to the point where you had that edge and that like seriousness about running? Because I know mine didn't really happen until grade 9. That's when I like really started, was like, I'm locking in. I don't want anyone ahead of me. Like I'm beating everyone. And then I got put into like an area where everyone was like that, like college, right?
Right. Sure.
Or like provincials.
Yeah.
So like we're all have that mentality and we all want to be first. So then you're in a place where everyone's at the same caliber. But like for you, when did you start getting that edge?
Probably in early on, probably in middle school.
Okay.
So that would be what, like 13, 14 years old?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I ran cross country and track and field in middle school, and then I ran cross country and track and field in high school as well.
Okay.
So in terms of the best race in the world is probably the Daw Run.
Oh yeah, it is.
I would run this every
That is
year.
a
And that
classic.
thing was like
That's a certified class.
Hood classic.
For sure.
Oh, I was even so moved back in June, and this summer and fall I've been spending a lot of time running on the trails down at Heritage Ranch, and
gorgeous.
just like dreaming of running the Daw Run this year.
That's a landmark. Y'all better go check that out.
Weird to have like an old man show up at a elementary school kids race.
I don't know. You just gotta introduce yourself.
Yeah, but like I don't know why I didn't have this insight myself, but someone's like, "Oh, you should visit a school and coach them for the Daw Run." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds like a much better idea."
Would you like that?
Oh, hell yeah.
That sounds like right up your alley, kind of.
Yeah, better than going and beating kids.
Yeah, training them to beat kids for you.
Well, but it's more like, so I'm at a place where it's like being at peace and happy with what you're doing is the most important. So it's like, hey, if I can help instill some of the joy of running and the freedom of running, it doesn't matter, where you place.
That. Yeah,
because it's like, good luck winning every race in your life.
Fair enough. There's always going to be those times, like Ethan said earlier, right?
Yeah.
You got your highs and lows, and it's just all part of the same process.
That's right.
That's when I like really started to accept like you're not always gonna win, right? Was in high school when I went to provincials, because going into that I was like the top guy, right, in Red Deer at least.
Nice.
It was me and one other kid, and we'd always kind of bounce back and forth between who would win. But then going to provincials, being with, like I said, all the kids that have the same caliber, so it's a lot more competitive. You're not always gonna win,
right.
And like facing that reality earlier on, right, 14 years old, 15 years old. I think that really, really set me up for understanding failure and accepting it, learning to cope with it, before it was too late and before I always wanted to win, right? I think that's like a very, very important realization for people to have, because I know people even at my age still that they don't like losing, right? They don't see the value in losing, because there's value in losing. I always say,
mistakes, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I always say that there's no such thing as a loss. It's a lesson, right? So whenever I lose a race, I'm like, hey, what happened? What could we have done to do better? Or it's just plain and simple, the other guy was better, right? So it's one of the two. But I always think there's something to get out of every win, every loss, and even races that you don't race, injury-wise, just kind of watching everyone else and just admiring and learning from everyone around you. What do you think about that?
I think that's like a fairly mature perspective for your age. I think you'll find that you'll run into folks, maybe many folks, regardless of age, 20s, 30s, 40s, older.
For all the runners out there.
Well, I think in all walks
People
of life,
general,
who don't want to lose, who want to win, and that's fine and well for them. But what I've learned and seen in others is that it is very hard to learn a lot out of winning.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember this quote that said, you can really get to know someone by how they handle their losses and their hardships, and because it's so easy to be happy about winning, right?
It's
it's so easy. You don't even need
exciting
to do
and fun.
It is,
totally. Yeah, no, and winning is great for sure.
Oh, 100%.
But it might be tough to take away some new learning or understanding if you win, because things went right.
It is.
Yeah.
There was always this kid. His name's Jared House. I don't know if you've ever heard the name, but he was like a grade above me and always won everything. Like, he's never lost ever. And then he went to where did he go? BC. He's in BC, and he was racing there. And then, like I said, same caliber, a little bit harder. You end up with people that are in the same area as you, that are going to be the same speed as you, that are going to challenge you. And before that, there was never any challenge, right? So I'm not really close with him anymore, but I'm sure that it would have been difficult to not win all the time when you've been winning all the time for the last 16, 17, 18 years, you know? And all of a sudden, you're not like the top guy anymore. For most people,
Humbling
that would
experience.
that would hurt your ego a lot.
Humbling experience for sure.
I know for me, that's like what drove me to run and to compete.
Was it a competition to win?
Yes, exactly.
I remember you being a really competitive guy when we were in school together.
Or just the fact that I knew my value, right? Because then your value is kind of tested, right? Because you're not the best guy anymore, right?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I'm not like a sport guy. But I'd say you kind of have to have a mixture of both. You know, you have to have that competitive spirit, because it's one of the things that would drive you.
Yeah.
Or at least that's why what I observe.
Yeah.
But you also have to do it for yourself. You know, you have to be your norm, and if you're not happy, then you got to set yourself to where you can be, and then where you want to be, and obviously not to let it get dangerous to the point where it's like an obsession, or you're just like hammering away at that constantly with no results, and you just get frustrated with yourself.
Yeah.
But like a healthy balance of both.
Well, I got really, I wouldn't say depressed, but I like developed a negative relationship with running end of last season, where, you know, I needed to run this time and I needed to be in this position, and it wasn't so much about enjoying running. It was about hitting these landmarks and these goals, and once I hit them, it wasn't good enough, right? You need to hit even faster and faster, and at that point I was so mentally disattached from my sport and my love for the sport that I wasn't even a runner anymore. I was just a guy chasing times. So one of our good friends, Matthias, a Crown guy, he was like, dude, no matter how fast you run, no matter how old you are, no matter when you start running, you're always a runner at the core. He said, it doesn't matter, dude. Like, none of that matters. Just go out there, enjoy yourself, and run, right? Because if you put in the work and you train and you put in the hours, the outcome's going to be what it's going to be. No matter what you do, no matter what you're aiming for, it's just going to be what it's going to be.
The most important thing is that you're still a runner.
You're still a runner, right? At 70 years old, you're a runner. At my age, 19, I'm a runner. Like, it doesn't matter. What do you think about that?
Valuable pieces of
you're
advice.
Always a runner, like, no matter what you're chasing.
See your gears turning.
What's your question?
I'm curious what your thought is on just not developing a negative relationship with sport.
Sure.
And like I said, that balance too.
Because that can happen really quickly.
Competitive
and
for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think a little bit contrary in a sense. I've never really been motivated by competition against other runners.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I
I'd like to hear
was,
this.
I'd say, in high school, which is shortly where you're out of.
Yes.
In terms of
2
timeline.
years.
But after high school provincials, which happens in the fall, I didn't do a whole lot of running for a number of years, and I don't know that I even necessarily identify myself as a runner, or any one particular thing. It's just like it's like I'm Ian or I'm me.
You are who you are.
I don't need to be a runner. I don't need to be a climber or a skier or a doctor or a researcher or whatever. It's just like, no, it's just me, and it's one expression of my full self.
I love that.
Even if it's something that I'm doing every day and everyone else is like, oh yeah, he's a runner or he's whatever. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's true. It's part of me. But in terms of my running practice, which, I mean, it probably sounds a bit bullshitty, but I mean, I probably run a huge amount more than most people who are runners. So it sounds maybe a little absurd to say I'm not a runner, but it's not that I'm not a runner, but I don't necessarily label myself
like your
that
one
way.
Defining trait.
Yeah.
Right? You're, like you said, you're Ian.
That's
you
right.
have a lot to you.
So
That's right.
what do you identify yourself as then? Because like I know myself in like my bio, my description of me,
Sure.
I put, you know, RDP athlete.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's like my label. I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
Right? And throughout my whole life, I've been an athlete. Everyone
Right.
knows me as a track runner,
Right.
an athlete. That's
Yeah.
my label.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And that is honestly one of my defining factors.
Which is
As a person.
awesome.
Like
That's great.
If I ever,
If it feels right for you.
yeah, well, like if I was ever stripped of my ability to run, right? Devastating car accident, can't walk. I don't know what I'd do with myself, because
Right.
that is like it.
And then there we come right back to the question of like, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win.
Yeah.
And in that question of like what would happen, it's like, well, you'd still be you.
Yes.
And
the
you'd
end of
have
the day.
to re-envision or reimagine or recreate the story of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think important there is recognizing that any piece of you, whether it's a particular relationship, a romantic one, a familial one, a friendship-based one, a mentorship one, a particular pursuit you have, a profession you have, or a house or possession you have, isn't the totality of the definition of who you are.
Yeah.
And I think part of joy and contentment and freedom is being allowing yourself to be free of those attachments. Not that they wouldn't hurt if they were removed, but there would still be you without running.
Well, the other day we mentioned your ability to strip down to the core and level with anybody, right?
Oh. Well, I try to.
And I think that's exactly like the exact same comparison.
Yeah.
Of just stripping yourself of everything that is attached to your name.
What are you without all of those things is a question I think you have to ask yourself. I've asked myself that question actually a lot of times.
That is a hard question.
Like what, like
yeah.
One of my things was school. I was like without really wanting to, I was pretty academic. Like it was just one of those things. My dad was an incredibly smart man.
Mm-hmm.
He had like 98 average in university. Like I'm not sure what that equates to in a GPA, but practically like a 4.0.
Yeah. That like, is a 4.0.
Insane. And you know, there was times where I had those losses and I had to sit down with myself and I go, well, like, what am I doing? You know, and also applies to everything else, you know, that you can do. Some of the things like, oh, maybe I suck at this, but like, who am I? What am I? That's a question that you spend your life trying to answer. I feel that's not something you get the answer to immediately. It's something that builds up over time.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think, or another way to look at that is that answer can be forever changing.
Exactly. Yeah. That.
Or
exactly.
building upon, right? It's not like that you're seeking it forever.
Exactly.
Maybe you just need to continue to ask that question.
Right. And
of who you are, where you're from, where you're going. And
you can it's super easy to lose sight of that, but you have to have that ability to. I think that's a really important one that a lot of people miss a lot of things these days, I find. I don't know. It's a question of just looking for the answers.
Sure.
You know, you just have to, what are you without running? You're still Ethan, you know? For me, on like an outside perspective, you're still my best friend, you're still my brother, and you're still a super talented, creative, thoughtful individual, right? Who are you without running? Well, you're still a doctor. You've still done amazing amounts of research. You're still able to level with people, you know, and this is me. I don't know you personally, obviously. I don't know you on that level. But that's kind of one of the things that you can, you know, look towards if you're trying to look on a line.
Well, I think the reason that it's so difficult to answer that question, especially at our age, is we've kind of been placed in this cookie cutter pattern shape, high school wise, right? We've all been through the same level of education. We all have our licenses, cars, whatever. We all have like the basic fundamentals going into adulthood, right? And then from that point on, it's up to us to decide what direction we're going to go and what path we're going to take, right? And I think that's like the most crucial part in our life in deciding and defining who we will be one day.
We've described it before like as a crossroads.
Yeah.
It's a humongous crossroads, right? And it's kind of finding out, where do I go from here, right? Like for myself, as I mentioned earlier, someone who was pretty academic in the past, I think one of my roughest years was grade 11, where I kind of just wanted to goof off. I didn't really want to be the smart kid anymore. And I know that could sound pretty, but it's just one of those things that I was just like every time someone like asked me something in class, like, oh, René knows the answer, or René has 100, I was just like, no, I have more to me than that. Right. And then I lost that kind of academicness because I didn't study as hard. I didn't apply myself as hard. And I was like, is this really who I want to be? And it, like you said, it keeps coming back. It's not one of those things you have the answer to in the moment. It's ever changing.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm curious about when you decided who you wanted to be. Because I know you mentioned it's ever changing, but have you been through multiple changes and like in your identity and who you define yourself as?
It's getting real.
No, that's a tricky question to answer. I mean, I think the way I would answer that is I've had. I'm still a young man, but I've had many years definitely. And many experiences within the few years that I've lived that have prompted me or provided me the opportunity to reflect on who I am and who I want to be. And for me, therefore, it's been this kind of stepwise path of learning about myself. And part of that is this inner focus of who am I when I'm stripped of all my
accolades, accomplishments,
defining factors.
Yeah, that and like the things I do in my life, the relationships I have, but who am I at my core. And then part of it, in addition to that inner focus, is like a rear-facing focus of like, who do I come from?
Yeah.
And not just, my core family, but looking further back and further and back. And then also, I think a third part is looking at the land that I'm based on, and my relationship to land and all those that I have relationship with, how those relationships of various sorts are impacting who I am, what I know, what I'm doing, and where I'm going. And then I think the fourth part for me is like the forward facing is, well, with this kind of increasing knowledge of self and where I'm situated and who I'm coming from, like, where can I go?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
In the world.
That's an amazing answer.
And, it's super tough, and it's like sometimes it can be very heavy, it can be very confusing, it can be like a little bit frustrating and sad and tearful, but then it can also be
a moment of release.
Release, and also an iterative process whereby I don't have to have all the answers
right away
and being content with that.
And that's the thing, it's accepting, like sitting with that difficulty. And then it's like, for me, it's like, this is part of why running or endurance sport or endurance activities, especially outdoors in nature, in the mountains and elsewhere, is such a excellent kind of fit for this.
Getting a call.
Sorry.
Because a lot of times when you're doing long distance endurance types endeavors, you have to be comfortable to sit with that discontent.
Yes.
Where you're not going to have an answer or a finish right now.
It'll come later, or it may not come at all, but you have to accept that.
Yeah, well, so like in these long distance fucking things, you're going to be out there on your own, relying only on your own ability, your own grit, your own mind, your own body, your own heart, your own spirit for a long time potentially. And it's only up to you to carry on. And it's like, it can be very difficult, but you have to sit with that and then take another step.
That's the beauty of our sport.
Keep going.
Like,
perseverance.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you have, who you are, like gear wise, we're all out there on the trails. We're all doing the exact same sport, right? I'm going to nationals this weekend, right? And there is, I don't know, 3 feet of snow on the ground there. And everyone is like, oh, like it's going to suck. Like it's going to be so tough. I'm like, guys, we're all on the same playing field.
That's right.
Like what do you think is going to be different from our team running and their team running? Like they have no advantage over us.
Yeah.
You know? We're all on the same thing. We are all on the same level, right? No one has any ups on anybody. It doesn't matter.
We've talked about that in past episodes too. When you can look at like our like episode, I think it was 18 or something like that. We're talking about how you can't just slap a label on yourself. You know, you have to keep taking those steps, and eventually you'll find out. Or you may, like we keep saying, we may never have the answer. For me, so tying that all back into like the story about the school stuff, right? At the end of the day, I just sat down with myself and I was like, it doesn't matter if I'm not like the valedictorian next year. It doesn't matter if I don't feel like, what matters is me. It doesn't matter if I have to or want to keep applying myself.
Yeah.
As long as I'm happy with where I'm at.
Well, I'm still René. I've spoken to the valedictorians that I graduated with, and you know, they were like, or I was like, was it worth it? Like, and they were like, not really.
Right.
You know?
And that's where in part I asked myself those questions, like, do I really want this, or do I kind of want to live a little, you know? And that's a hard one to say too, because we say, you know, when you're just going, oh, let's live a little, you know, nobody cares, right? If you want to be where you want to be, you have to apply yourself. Yeah. But you also have to question if you're happy with it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, nobody cares if you live a little or if you stay in for the night and study. Yeah. Right? No one cares if you go to the party or if you get an A on your test. Yeah. Right? Nobody gives a shit. It's just about you and you being content with your decisions and the repercussions caused by your decisions.
Is it worth it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, I love that. I love this episode. This episode's so sick.
It's a sick episode.
I wanna kind of step away a little bit from running.
Okay. Sure.
We've been talking about I feel like a runner right now. That's something I might have to try out.
You have the shoes.
I do have the shoes. That's something I'll get on, because my cardio honestly isn't that great. But
it takes about, I don't know, 10 years.
Oh God.
Just kidding.
So like we said, running isn't the only thing that defines you guys. There's more to you. Is there more? What would you say is your other dualities? Like, you're a doctor, you love helping people. You've told us that. You've done a lot of research on runners and things like that, which also I find fascinating. Yeah. All of those things. Like, what more is there to you? I know that it's not just running.
Well, what part would you like to know about?
Whatever you think is the most interesting, or whatever you think is the most inspiring.
I actually have a specific area.
Sure.
Relationship wise.
Oh yeah.
The question that keeps coming up.
I want to know how you, person to person, no matter who it is, romantic relationships, familial friendships, how you manage your time, first of all, as being an athlete, a doctor, right? Full-time
physician,
adult. First of all, how do you manage your time and these relationships? And where do these people fall in your life?
Really curious to know, because for us, you know, growing up, it's hard to figure that out.
Yeah, that is the biggest question. How do I do this? How do I organize my life properly?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. Yeah, I've been a full-time adult for a little while.
Yeah.
I've had lots of, I've been blessed to have lots of relationships
Mm-hmm.
of like various sorts, of various intimacies and vulnerabilities throughout my life, and still do. I think like one of the most important pieces, if I could like share, and it's something that I'm always practicing on, but especially if I could hear this when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, is the more present you can be with whomever you're relating to in that moment, the greater your relationship will be.
Okay.
Right? And so I try to apply this with all relationships that I have. And it's a work in progress, so I'm not always achieving it as I would like. But you can think of this in the doctor-patient relationship, where I might only be able to have 5 minutes with you, or 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. And it doesn't mean I don't want more time or didn't wish we could have more time. But if I'm only able to see you for 15 minutes, or go on a date and we're just having dinner, or hanging out with my brother and having coffee, or whatever the amount of time is, you can make that time feel incredibly full by being present with someone.
I love that perspective.
It's a very
That's
difficult
so
thing to
good.
do, because
It is difficult.
I actually try to practice the exact same thing. Ever since I was young, I hated people on their phones. When I was, at a restaurant, I see a couple on their phones. I'm just like, well,
what's the
what
point?
the hell, right? And whenever I'm around people, I'm just like, yeah, like no phones, please. Like let's, we're together.
Sure.
We're blessed to be in each other's presence. Let's enjoy each other's company.
Live in the moment.
Yeah. And something like recently, what I've been really, really trying to do is, I have so many things that I'm doing in my day, like start to finish. It's a full schedule. So every time slot, that's the only thing that I want to be on my mind. Right.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm not thinking about my class I had before this, or the homework I need to do after this. I am 100% engaged, present with you, Ian, and with René, and with our audience. And this is what I'm doing right now, 100%, right?
Being
Thank
in the
you.
moment.
And then once we wrap up, then I'm going to be 100% on my homework, and I'm not going to be thinking about my run after or about the podcast, right? And I think that you get a better quality of life by doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly well-known fact,
Yeah,
which is great.
100%.
But it's hard, and I'd say take it easy on yourself if you're not
Slipping up,
right.
yeah.
And that's okay.
Coming out of that, you get so many things that I like to call like refocus periods, because it's hard to keep that kind of discipline up too.
It's difficult, dude.
It's hard to just like straight sight it, no, like just tunnel vision it a little bit.
It's also hard not to beat yourself up.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but I have really high standards and like expectations for myself.
Sure, and I think that's not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but it can be draining at times. It
Sure,
it can be very taxing.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, you gotta kind of be careful and not make it one of those things that'll end up making you hate yourself.
Yeah.
It's all about balance. We said it before. It's all about balance.
Yeah, and I think it's like not a bad thing to have high standards or expectations for yourself, but also to be kind and gentle and respectful of yourself if you're not meeting those expectations. And I think it's important to ask yourself why you're not meeting those expectations.
Oh, that's
reevaluate.
Therefore, do you need to reevaluate the actual expectation that you have, or was it unreasonable, or what? Yeah. But if we go back to the relationships, that's I think that's just like a tip that I would offer to you guys being young, recently out of high school, is the more present you can be. I think the more you will, feel connected to those you're with, and the more connected they will. It'll be apparent and obvious. But to answer the question more fully, one thing I've been working on over the recent years, more and more focusedly, has been trying to learn about myself and who I am, more so how I react to situations of conflict, of ease, and what I'm looking for and what I'm seeking. And it may sound very kind of cliche, but so that I can put out into the world, that which I'm seeking.
Yeah, not cliche at all. We say the cliche things.
Cliche in a sense, but it's like, but I think it's also just a cliche in the sense that it may be, promoted frequently, but I think it's because it's such a foundational thing. Until I can myself be that which I'm seeking, it'll be hard to have the most fulfilling friendship, be the most fulfilling son, the most fulfilling brother, lover, husband, boyfriend,
100%.
whatever.
Like, what I mean when I say that is the most cliche things, and I've said this before as well. There's a lot of things we say. The cliche is always gonna be the truest. There's a reason why it's cliche.
Yeah, oftentimes.
Yeah. Do you believe that at our core, being like a person in general is something that needs to be practiced? What do you mean? As in like communicating with people, reacting. Like, do you journal your reactions? Do you journal your experiences?
I do a lot of writing.
Kind of like
that's good.
Acknowledge what's happened and be like, oh, like why did I react this way, and like change it, or like
yes.
Yeah.
I'd say all aspects of relationship are practiced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You gotta adjust to what happens. I like that, because there's a lot of times, sometimes too, when I like get in an argument with a friend or in a disagreeable situation or moment, I always after it happens, I always sit back and go, what did I do? What did the other person do? How did I react to that?
Yeah.
You got to look at it that way, or else you're not going to change the behavior. You're not going to be a better person. It's just going to stay the same way.
I think the hardest thing is when they're wrong and they're wrong, but you can't tell them they're wrong.
And there's times where, what do they call it? Cognitive dissonance. There's some times where you just have to just stop that conversation or whatever's happening. Not even necessarily having to walk away, but just maybe bringing the focus on something else, right? Like if it's gotten to the point where it's just butting heads all the time, you just need to, something else, change the topic or walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relationships. So one thing I struggle with is, and I said, and I keep saying, I love the perspective of being there in the moment, being present. But one of the things I struggle with is being there in the first place. Right?
Sure.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Because for myself, I'm noticing that I'm getting increasingly busy with life, having more things to do.
Right.
Ethan's also the same way, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but
the
running,
tasks are just piling on.
Homework, working, right? And it's hard. Like I haven't sat down with my mother in quite a while and just have like a real conversation, or with my friends and family. Like sometimes it gets really hard. I feel like it's a time balancing thing. But for yourself, how have you found that to be true in your life? Like,
have I found that to be true?
Yeah, like you're a doctor, right? And then you're an athlete as well. You have all of these things like a lot of people do.
And you have all these different relationships. Like you're here with us, and we have only been speaking for maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And you already made this time for us, and you're making creating time. This connection with us.
Making time. How do you make time? How do you make time?
I don't make time.
You don't make time?
No. I mean, we were all given the same amount of minutes in the day, right? 1,440.
Right.
Right? And it's up to us to choose how to use them. And, of course, there are, like, constraints in everyone's life. Like, most people have to work to afford money to be able to afford to live and eat and whatnot. And how do I make time? I think part of it is that practicing of presence, right? Because we could have 5 minutes and it can feel like a long time.
Yeah, you just have to choose to be there.
I think this is a great part of it, right? Is that choice, and part of that is prioritizing what you need to do and can't not do, right? And those might be the constraints that I'm speaking of, and therefore you have to do it as part of your life, whether it's for now or forever or for a set period of time. But amongst the time that's not, I think, constrained, I think, and this is part of what I'm mentioning about, trying to really learn about myself, is how do I want to be spending my life?
You finding that satisfaction, or not even a question of satisfaction. It's just finding in general.
Yeah. Well, what if today was last day?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't mean to go and be extravagant every day.
Right.
And, because we need some balance and longevity.
Yeah.
And we can't just live in excess all the time.
Yeah.
But if you, for me, I've had enough experiences in my life where I've been near death or whatnot.
Yes, I was going to bring that up actually. Yeah.
The finite aspect of life, and the fact that, and so one thing that I often have reflected back on is I haven't come across something other than time that you can't get more of in life.
Right.
I can make more money. I could find a new friend, a new girlfriend, a new job, a new car, a new hat, a new.
You think you can find and rebuild relationships, replace relationships?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk on that in just a sec. But the only thing I've come across that you can't make more of is time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
right?
can't. Yeah.
And so, whether you want to explore this in the idea of a love language and that time is your best way of expressing or receiving love, or if you just want to think about it in this is my life. I have a certain amount of time. I don't know how much time that is, but I'm not getting more than what I get. And it's like
right. What do you
have
to
to
decide what to do with that?
Yeah, and for me, and so what I've reflected on increasingly so over the last few years, but it's gotten more and more every week and day over the recent time is not wasting that gift.
Mm-hmm. The gift of time.
It's always
or life. Yeah,
or
right.
life.
Like I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Being thankful. We had an episode on that.
And it's not just. Yes, thankfulness or gratitude, but it's I have been given a gift of today.
Yeah.
And I am continuing to be gifted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, what do you do with that gift? And for me, it's to not sacrifice that gift.
To not waste it.
Yeah.
Right. And hold on. Sorry, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Before, that's such a tough one because you're constantly put in the day and you have all these things to do. Mm-hmm. So would you also say, right, it's not always about having to do not the most important things, but it's not always about work. Life isn't always about tunnel visioning what you have to do. Sometimes you have to take some time and enjoy it with the ones closest to you because you don't know if tomorrow might be the last day kind of thing.
Yeah, I try to have never tunnel view.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Keep your aspects.
I'd say try not to.
Okay, well, I won't lie to you. The way I have been is
right.
Every day is a grind, right? Every day is. Have you ever heard of hustle mindset or?
Yes.
Some people can even
Sigma culture.
Yes, Sigma culture.
Okay, I've not heard of that term, but
it's hustler's mindset.
Essentially, it's just always working, right? 24 hours a day, grind.
And it's hard and it's scary because
I don't want to waste any time and not make progress.
The more I focus on that, right? Because Ethan and I have so many things that we want to do, places where we want to be, right? Sure. We have all these ambitions, and you learn this from since you're in school, right? You have stories like Macbeth that you can't let your ambition, derail you, throw you off the path. So
well, I look at time as an investment.
Okay.
So I'm investing my time in school so that I can have a degree one day.
Okay.
And investing my time in school so that I can have an expansion of my mind and knowledge.
Yeah.
I invest my time in running because it gives me a return, right?
Okay.
I invest my time in the podcast because I love meeting people, creating new relationships, experiences. So if I'm not going to receive a return on my investment, why would I be investing, right?
I think you've offered yourself a question to reflect on.
Yeah.
That's something to think about. Yeah.
Well, maybe, right? All these things are not bad to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
These are all good pursuits good pursuits if you want to be doing them.
Yeah.
I think an important question to ask yourself, Ethan, is why? For everything you do, and is the why to get something out of it?
And should it be or should it not be?
Well, that's for you to decide.
Yeah. And
right. I mean, what I have done is it's changed over time, obviously, and it's changing as I learn more about myself and find myself in the world. But I'm attempting, and I come from great privilege, so it's, take what I say with a grain of salt. But what I'm trying to do with my time, whether it's reading, writing, working in the hospital, doing some research, running, skiing, whatever it is, I'm part of whatever the thing that I'm doing, the conversation I'm having, the activity I'm undertaking is for that experience itself.
To be present.
Right. To be present, yes, but more so than just being present, it's enjoying what's happening while I'm doing it, rather than doing it for the hopes of progress.
Because it'll come along the way.
Or development. Inevitably.
Right. Not having that tunnel vision, right?
So enjoy the process, not the end goal.
Right. Like if, so we can think of like even right now, this conversation that we're having, we're recording a podcast, but what happens if this evening you realized you didn't record it?
Yeah,
that's happened after.
Yeah, it's happened before.
But, that's it's kind of a rhetorical question because it's, well, was then this all for nothing?
No, and this is still an amazing conversation, whether or not it's recording or not.
Well, it's not necessarily just about progress, because we get to develop our relationship together. Maybe I get to learn something about each of you. You can hear something from me or whatever. Yeah. And if it also helps in the pursuit of your podcast vision or game, cool. But ultimately, like, this is what's going on right now.
That's insane.
Right? Yeah. But I mean, if you try to have this as a practice, at least this is what I've been trying. Yeah. Because if you're trying this as a practice, then there's thankfulness and gratitude and respect for what I'm experiencing at each time, even if it's like I'm in bed crying because I'm remembering something that happened, whatever, or I'm like on the side of the trail exhausted and tired and whatever. If I can respect the sensation and the experience that I'm having, then I get to live it more fully. And oh my God, like, what could you want more in life than to live it more fully? Right? Incredible. Like in terms of presence, it's rather than looking back and like, oh yeah, that was super awesome. But I can't,
you'll never relive that.
Yeah, you'll never relive it. And you might recreate it, maybe.
But it'll never be one for one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I'm wanting to have as deep an experience with whatever I'm doing, whether it's getting to know you and hearing about your dad and having coffee or whatever, or like climbing a mountain. It ultimately, and it's okay whether it's hard, whether it's sad, whether it's scary, whether it's happy and light or funny or whatever. It's like, I'm here for all of the experience.
Yeah. And that doesn't exist anymore. Really.
Oh, it does.
Well, it does, but like, I mean,
it's in
our generation.
Yeah, and I don't
very
know why.
Difficult.
It's hard to come across. Yeah, that's what I keep.
It's because you can go on your phone and rewatch it.
That's why I keep saying, like, so many people have lost sight of so many things today, these days, in recent times.
Yeah, and I think that there's an aspect to social media and electronic use of phones, whatever. You're always having this like proliferation of the ability to watch other people living life, even if it's in snippets, if it's edited, if it's filtered or whatever.
That's why we're unfiltered.
And it's real life too, right? It's part of real life, but it's you're choosing to spend your time doing that. And that's fine, right? If it's bringing you, well, it's fine. You don't need a reason necessarily. But part of it is my concern, and what I've observed, I think I get the impression, is that it is coming at the cost of people being able to focus.
Yes, absolutely. Man, focus
right?
is
especially
such
if it's like
one.
We go from long form written story, film or whatever, down to now like, you can watch this for 2 seconds and then you're on to the next thing.
Well, with like, our episode, we don't have a lot of people that watch the full episode.
I'm sure.
Because this is very raw listening content, right? And it's not very stimulating the entire way off the bat, right? That we're talking about stuff that people maybe don't want to talk about and don't want to hear, right? It's good for them to hear. It's really good for them to talk about it.
Yeah, possibly.
But it's not, bam, bam, in their face, boom, 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 30 seconds of really high dopamine, and then it's just like, okay, the next thing.
Yeah,
right?
It's not necessarily
It's
dramatic.
a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, is that they're not necessarily involved.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think there's like an ability to relate, but for the most part, when you're watching and listening to some other people's conversation, you're on the outside.
Yeah.
And like, I don't, and I have yet to find a way to bring people into that conversation that they're not a part of.
I'm trying to figure that. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Of course. And I know you guys are, but it's like, I don't know that I have the solution. But part of it is it's tough. It becomes an exercise in like voyeurism in a sense, and like imagining what folks are, us as the folks are speaking of.
Well, I'll say it time and time again.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, and I've had people that have watched the full episode. Usually it's going to be friends or family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I will keep doing this as much as I have to if it gives someone something. I've always had that one person that says, whatever you guys talked about in that one episode really resonated with me. That's actually really helped me. Right. And it's not that I get like a high off of that, but it just makes me know that it's like kind of the right path.
Yeah.
And if nobody watched it, as long as you're getting something out of it,
I'll always get something out of it.
Right.
That's from the get-go. First episode.
From the get-go, we created this because we were just talking alone. Right. And then we were like, let's share it with people, because we're gonna have these conversations at a coffee shop with Ian, whether or not there's a camera and a backdrop and mics.
That's
right. We had a very similar talk on Monday, and there was nothing happening. Right.
Unfiltered.
But we want to share this with people, because we want to share your experiences, which we resonate with,
right?
Which we want people to resonate with.
God, I hope that camera's still recording.
And that's the whole thing.
Sure, yes,
Unfiltered.
That's man, yeah. Because we said it in the very first episode, even if nobody watches this, right? I will be able to watch it. Ethan will be able to watch it. You'll be able to watch it. If it doesn't record, maybe not on our phones, but in our memories.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. That's how you evolve. That's how you keep going.
Even if you look at our very first episode, which was in April, I believe.
May.
Beginning of May?
Yeah.
A lot's changed since then. Our mentality, like even...
I always say I'm not the same person I was 5 minutes ago.
Meeting you, my mentality has changed. Right? The way I view certain things have kind of shifted in a way where going forward, I may not make certain decisions that I would have before incurring your point of view, right? So that's like the beauty of it, is we can shift so many people's minds in the right direction,
or give them
give
them the ability to.
Yes.
Give them the ability.
Give them the tools, right? And the insight. And I just think that it's such a beautiful thing, right? Because like you said, we kind of think a little bit older than we are, right? And I know a lot of people that are our age that don't really think the same way as us, which is like, we always say, completely fine, right? They're living their life.
It's a maturity thing, because we're the product of what we've been through. Yeah. And for some people that accelerates, for some people that slows
that's what
it down.
It is. We're not the way we are for no reason, right? We're not the way we are just because we decided to one day. We're the way we are because of our past and what is to be our future, right?
And also in the last episode, we had our guest Michael Barker. Shout out to him, sick guy.
Very cool.
He also told us kind of echoes of what you were saying earlier, is that no matter what it is you're doing, as long as you're enjoying it, as long as there's purpose, as long as you're present, everything else will follow along.
Yeah.
And I think that's hearing it from you too, right? Like, it's really...
I haven't heard you talk once about money. I haven't heard that word or any, materialistic possessions. Like, that is just, like, it doesn't matter.
I don't have very much money.
Yeah. Well, being a doctor, right?
People would assume.
Sure, yeah.
Like, it would just be an assumption, right?
But I love how you're just happy with it. You're just happy with your life.
Yes.
Yeah. And
money is not my pursuit. I would say I have enough to live.
Yeah. And it's everyone else's pursuit is money, right? And seeing somebody that it isn't their pursuit is very inspiring. And it also gives me hope, right?
Well, you're sponsored by North Face, right?
That's right.
And a couple other brands.
Yeah, he's Smartwool. He used to be sponsored by Cliff. A couple other nutrition brands I saw on your Instagram.
Yeah, Exact Nutrition.
But that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, of course it matters. Yeah. What do you mean?
It doesn't matter to the point where it influences how you speak to people.
Because you wouldn't introduce yourself as, "Hi, I'm Ian, sponsored by North Face," right?
That's right.
That may be more of an observation than like a question or a statement, but right, like money is such a big one in this world, especially now, right? Because you have to have, or I guess you don't have to, but
you have to.
The most common conception is that you have to have money to do things, right?
You do. I mean, to a certain extent, if you want to do certain things, right?
Well, yeah.
You can't go to the amusement park
with no money.
No money, right?
You can't just.
You can't get in a car without any money because you got to go buy gas, right?
It's
just like you need money.
Trickier thing to think about, right? Because the sponsorships, like anyone would want to be sponsored. If you think about like any person in high school that's like really applying themselves and wants to be that guy, wants to be that athlete, they would obviously love a sponsor, right?
Probably.
It's one of those things, but
is your sponsor something that you use to your advantage to better your ability to be the best athlete you can be, or is it something that you kind of like hold near and dear to like your identity?
Well, I think there's a few parts to it. And it's changed over the years. The first sponsorship I had began in 2012, so it's been
11 years.
Yeah, it's been 11 years, and I then was first sponsored by the North Face in 2013, so it's been a decade.
Oh wow, you've been with them for 10 years.
Yeah, that's right. So
real quick, are their jackets warm?
Oh yeah,
there's some good stuff.
Yeah, they have a wide range of jackets, but
those things be like $400, but I'm like, I should probably invest.
And I would definitely promote them, but it's hard for me. I think like also from my heart, it's hard for me to say that everyone should get one.
Right.
I mean, everyone should be. What do I want to say? I mean, I think there's some of the highest quality like mountaineering and outdoor gear made.
And this is not a paid promotion.
And the brand is awesome, and I've loved working with them. But it's easy for me to say when I've been provided the access to have that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like would you have the same opinion and point of view if you weren't sponsored by them? Like if you
were
sponsored
in terms of the quality of the gear, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I definitely recommend it to anybody, but it's, again, I have a biased opinion because I've been provided access to something that is so expensive for the average person to be able to afford that. I mean, it's provided me like great opportunity, but it's hard for others to necessarily, like, there's a great barrier to entry for some of the pieces. Has it helped me as an athlete? 100%. I mean, if you help somebody in their pursuit, and in my case, it was running and skiing and climbing, which are three of their main kind of foci. And I happen to love to be able to do all these things: ski mountaineering, climbing, ice and rock climbing, and trail and ultra running. They helped, the sponsorship with them removed some barriers to my access, even as an already privileged person, that it just made it easier. And the funding that I've received over the decade has helped me travel, and participate in more races than I could.
That's just one of the things that followed.
Right? Yeah, and for most of that decade, I was not making a whole lot of money. I was a student for much of that time, and
but you still managed to
support,
balance all that out, which again I find super inspiring, because I'm at that point in life where it's just like, how the hell do I balance all of these things out without sacrificing myself?
Because most people, they choose one thing, right? They're like,
sure,
for the next, X amount of months, I'm a student.
Right.
And then I'm going to work.
Yeah.
But, like, for René and I, You know, I'm a
like
student, I'm an athlete, I'm working X amount of hours a week. I podcast, I prioritize this heavily, working on Crown when I have the time. I need to study when I have the time. And it's all about when I have the time.
Entrepreneurs.
Right?
Yeah.
It's when I have the time for everything.
Sure.
It's like, hey, when can we hang out? And it's like I got to check when I have the time. Whereas most people, they're like, oh, I'm done class here, and then I have nothing to do for the rest of the day. So, you know,
I guess going back to the original question,
yes,
it's not more so like the sponsorship as the idea.
Yes.
It's as Ian, right? You're still Ian with or without the sponsorship. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes.
Obviously, right? It's like just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's one of those things that you can and could live without. That was like part of that question.
Yeah.
What I was trying to
are
say.
you like the same quality of Ian without it? Because that's what's like mind-boggling for me. Like would I still be the same respectable athlete if I wasn't associated with a collegiate team?
Well, you better be.
Yeah, I better be, right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the same
yeah,
for
and
you.
so I think maybe like a more appropriate question is not so much about like the quality of the athleticism, but I think there's that like association with a brand and some of that status that's provided by being sponsored by whomever, but especially being sponsored by such an awesome and well-known, globally known brand as the North Face or Smartwool, is like it provides a little bit of social capital that
100%,
others don't have.
Leverage.
Yeah, and it's like, would I be okay without that status? And this has been a tricky kind of thing for me to think about and reflect on over the years. And early on, you know, I definitely, I mean, I've always benefited from that kind of social capital. Yeah. But I've, over the recent years, with some changes in life and maturation and things I've been learning and working on, I'm fairly confident that I'm in a place where I can fully be myself, unattached with the idea of being a professional or, you know, heavily sponsored athlete. And I would still be pursuing the training I enjoy, the events I enjoy, and the life I have.
Because at the end of the day, you're a runner.
Not just a runner, but that's part of it.
Yeah, but you know, and then at the end of the day, I don't need to be tied to
just don't need to be tied to something.
Well, it's like part of what I've learned over the 10 years, and part of it is like I'm an older fellow now, so I'm not as
35.
I'm 35 years old, but I'm less attractive as a sponsored athlete as I'm kind of aging out of the game. But that kind of biological reality, you know, is something that I face. And it's like, okay, well, and any sponsorship is going to end. You know, I don't know. It's a year-by-year contract, so this could be the last year, next year could be the last year, or 3 years ago, whatever. Right. But it's coming to a place of what I'm really seeking is freedom in a full sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, that's easy, you know, and I don't mean to be flagrant with that term, throwing it around as a very privileged person, but it's like, can I let go of that feeling of it needing to be known as professional or sponsored by the North Face or sponsored by whomever? And it's like,
and still be okay.
Cool, but like, does it actually change who I am? And I believe not. I believe I'm like at a place in terms of like how I'm feeling that I'm like peaceful and content with getting to do my own thing. But I love the support. Like the support's amazing. And for me, what I've also recognized and realized over the recent past years of the sponsorships is the most important part about it is not the down jacket or the waterproof pants or the skis that I've received or whatever. It's the relationships that I've built through these sponsorships with other athletes, with athlete managers, with reps and whatnot. and the opportunities those relationships have allowed me to build with land that I've traveled to.
That's what Michael Barker said. He said, people are always asking me, well, what my net worth is. I'm like, that has nothing to do with anything. Ask me what my network is.
Sure. Yes. Right. Yeah.
Network is a lot more valuable than any net worth is.
I think that is so important, and that literally just goes back into, regardless of whether I'm sponsored or not, regardless of whether I have money or not, regardless of whatever it may be, I'm still me.
Mm-hmm.
You're still Ian. Mm-hmm. You're still Ethan. I'm still René.
And honestly, that just makes me feel so much more comfortable.
Life is amazing right now, dude.
Like so much anxiety just left.
That's good.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I know we've been sitting here for a minute. I know you have work soon. Final piece of advice. Just anything off the top of your head, like something
Don't
that
chase
you want.
money.
Don't chase money?
What should we chase? Do we chase anything?
Chase
Love.
ourselves. Chase love.
100%.
In what form?
100%. What else would you want to chase other than like giving love and being loved?
In what form though?
Well, I don't know if love has a form. I don't know. This is something I'm learning about. But now, love can come in many different like shapes and manifestations and expressions.
Incredible, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Because and I think a large part of it, and I know this will resonate with many people, maybe hopefully everyone, and I know it will for you guys. Like, self-love first.
Oh, yes, 100%. We preach that,
right?
All the time.
Right. But it's easy to preach, but it's hard to live.
But it's yeah.
It is. I mean, it's hard for me, but like what I'm pursuing is like chasing love. And not chasing in terms of like grasping and obsessing or whatever, but like that's the pursuit, is the pursuit of love. And for me, that leads to all these other aspects, which are like freedom, happiness, joy, contentment. To me, the way I conceptualize or understand love at present, and I'm always trying to learn more, is that like all of these aspects are parts of love.
I cannot wait to rewatch this.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. I can't wait to edit this.
I'm going to take a new piece of knowledge every time I watch it.
So many layers.
But also,
and I lived it.
But also, we could just chat more.
Oh,
you don't have to just rewatch the old conversation.
You're gonna be on this podcast again. I can tell you that right now.
And
we're gonna
go for coffee again. You know.
All
right, let's stop fanboying.
It's not fanboy, bro. This is our friend.
That's
Ian.
right.
This is our friend.
We're friends.
We are friends. Thank you so much for coming.
RE
being here
Unfiltered.
today.
Yeah.
Sharing your thoughts. Reflecting off of our thoughts.
Amazing.
Like, thank you so much.
Such an amazing spirit, such an amazing perspectives. Amazing.
Overall. Handshake
me up. And he's got it down.
Guys. Yeah, I
just
appreciate
like that.
getting to be here.
Love you all, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe.
All the YouTube shit.
And chase love.
Chase love.
Chase love.